Do you struggle to maintain weight loss but desperately want to feel good in your own skin, confident in your clothes, and improve your overall health? If so, you're home. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the More Than a Number podcast. I'm Sam, I'm your host, and I am so glad that you're here because today we're going to talk about something that I get asked about literally all the time. That question is, hey, Sam, do you take insurance? And before you click away, don't go anywhere. This is not going to be like some big sales pitch. So just stay with me for a minute. It's very important that we kind of work through this and talk about this together because this episode is absolutely not about insurance. It's about why so many intelligent, well-intentioned, motivated people continue to struggle with weight loss, even though they know what healthy foods are. And I think understanding that really changes everything. My passion has always been and will always be to help you find that long-term, long-lasting, lifelong health and wellness that you desire. So I want you to imagine something with me. Close your eyes if you need to, but imagine that you decide you want to play the piano. You hire an incredible piano teacher. They're knowledgeable, they're encouraging, they're experienced. You meet with them one time. They spend an hour teaching you posture, finger placement, reading music, and practicing scales. And by the end of the lesson, they say, cool. See you in 4 months. Good luck. Would anyone expect you to become like this great pianist in that way? With only seeing someone one time in 4 months? Of course not. Not because the teacher wasn't good, not because you're not motivated, but because learning a new skill requires repetition. It requires feedback. It requires practice and course corrections and encouragement and accountability. Weight management is the same way. One of the biggest myths that I think we've been sold is that if someone gives us like the right meal plan, we'll finally succeed. My friends, if information alone worked, like having the right information worked, Google would have solved the obesity epidemic years ago. We all know that vegetables are healthy, right? We know that protein is important, especially if you listen to this podcast. We know that soda and other like sugar sweetened beverages probably are not helping. We know that moving our body is good for us. Information itself is not the problem. The implementation of that information is the issue. So this is what I see every single day. Someone comes into my office, they're incredibly smart, they're successful in their careers, they're raising families, they're taking care of aging parents, they're volunteering at church, they're juggling a million different responsibilities, right? And they tell me, I know what I should be doing. I just can't seem to stick with it. Sound familiar? Well, here's the thing. I don't believe that they're lacking willpower or discipline. I don't believe that they're lazy. And I certainly don't believe that they need another meal plan downloaded from Pinterest. What they need is support and the right type of support for who they are as an individual, because life is messy. Nobody struggles with healthy eating like on a random Tuesday afternoon when everything is going perfectly. We struggle when we're exhausted after work, when our kid gets sick, when vacation starts, when the holidays roll around. Stress skyrockets. Someone brings donuts into the office. They're celebrating. They're grieving. All of these create this like overwhelm, right? And those are the moments that really determine long-term success, how we deal with those moments, not whether, you knew that broccoli was healthy. One of the reasons that I love being a dietitian is because nutrition is so much more than food. It's incredibly nuanced and incredibly influenced by so many other factors that absolutely must be taken into consideration. Yes, of course, we talk about protein. Of course, we talk about meal prep. We talk about calories, but we're also talking about daily habits, identity, mindset, emotions, stress, sleep, relationships, planning, problem solving, because that's what actually determines whether someone can sustain healthy behaviors for years and not just weeks, right? We never want to be like white knuckling our way through something because it's not going to last. And honestly, this is where I think the traditional healthcare system sometimes struggles, not because providers don't care. I work in healthcare. I know firsthand how many incredible physicians, nurses, dietitians, therapists, and other clinicians are out there. The issue is not the people. The issue is the system itself. Most healthcare is designed to diagnose and treat disease. Weight management, on the other hand, is largely about changing behaviors over time. And behavior change does not happen in one, 45-minute or hour-long appointment. It happens through a relationship. It happens through coaching, through accountability, through someone helping you navigate real life. I always tell my clients, my job is not to tell you that chicken is a lean protein. You probably already knew that, right? My job is to help you figure out how to get that lean protein in and eat well overall when you're working 50 plus hours a week, when your kids have soccer practice, when you're traveling, when your motivation disappears, when you're eating out 3 nights this week, when your spouse doesn't want to eat the same way you do, when you have vacation coming up, or when you had one bad day and your brain immediately says, well, I guess I'll just start over on Monday, because that's where coaching lives, not in perfection, but in that kind of messy middle. And here's something fascinating. The research actually supports this. Hello. We have decades of evidence showing that people don't simply need nutrition education, they need ongoing support. In fact, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics recommends at least 14 medical nutrition therapy visits over a minimum of 6 months for effective weight loss, followed by monthly follow-up for at least a year to support maintenance. Why? Because frequent contact consistently leads to better outcomes than those sporadic visits. So think about that. 14 visits, not one, not two, 14 within at least 6 months. So that's at least twice per month. That recommendation alone completely changed how I thought about nutrition counseling and how I wanted to offer nutrition counseling to my clients, because it confirmed what I'd already seen in practice. People don't change because someone handed them information. People change because someone walks beside them long enough for healthy habits to become automatic, their new normal. So I want to dive into what insurance actually covers, why those limitations exist, and what the research says about why more frequent interactions produce dramatically better results. Because I think once you understand that, you'll never look at nutrition counseling the same way again. So if we know that behavior change takes time, why don't most people receive ongoing nutrition support? The answer can be very complicated, but a big piece of it comes down to how our healthcare system and insurance benefits are structured. Now, before I go any further, I want to say something that is really important. I want to make sure that I get this point across. This is absolutely not a criticism of insurance-based dietitians. I am a dietitian. Okay. Many of my colleagues work in hospitals, outpatient clinics, physician offices, dialysis centers, diabetes programs. And, community health settings. They are incredibly knowledgeable and deeply committed to helping their patients. The challenge is not the quality of the dietitian. The challenge is that many of them are working within a system that limits how often they can see someone and how much time they have to create lasting behavior change. Those are two very different things, right? Let's talk about insurance for a minute because I think there's a lot of confusion around nutrition coverage. One of the questions I hear most often is, does my insurance cover nutrition counseling? And my honest answer is maybe. It depends. Coverage varies tremendously depending on your insurance company, your plan within that insurance company, your state, your diagnosis, whether a physician referral is required, and how your specific policy is written. Some commercial insurance plans provide very generous nutrition benefits. Others cover only a handful of visits. Some plans only cover nutrition counseling if you have a specific medical diagnosis like diabetes or chronic kidney disease. So if weight loss is your goal and that's really the ultimate diagnosis is obesity or overweight and you don't have diabetes or chronic kidney disease, then even though your insurance coverage provides or your insurance plan provides that coverage, because you don't meet that criteria, then you still don't get to use it. See what I'm saying? Others may cover obesity counseling under certain circumstances. And unfortunately, a lot of plans don't cover nutrition counseling at all. So there really isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. Even Medicare, which most people assume covers everything medically necessary, has limitations when it comes to nutrition. Currently, Medicare covers medical nutrition therapy primarily for people with diabetes or chronic kidney disease. For those who qualify, Medicare generally provides 3 hours of nutrition counseling during the first year and 2 hours each year after that, unless additional services are medically necessary and appropriately referred by a physician. Now, think about that for a second. 3 hours in an entire year. Could someone absolutely benefit in some way from those visits? Of course. Any time spent with a qualified registered dietitian is valuable, in my opinion. But let's compare that to learning any other complex skill. If you wanted to learn a new language, would 3 hours over an entire year make you fluent? Probably not. If you hired a personal trainer, would seeing them 3 times over 12 months completely transform your fitness? Probably not. Behavior change simply requires more repetition than that. And here's where the research becomes really interesting. So the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Evidence Analysis Library, which reviews the highest quality nutrition research available, recommends those 14 nutrition counseling encounters over a minimum of 6 months, right? For adults working toward weight loss. Not because 14 is some magical number, but because researchers consistently found that more frequent contact led to better outcomes. In fact, the recommendation also includes monthly follow-ups for at least a year during the maintenance phase because maintaining weight loss requires continued support and accountability. And as we've talked about on this podcast many, many times, and what I can even speak to on a personal level from my own, weight loss and maintenance journey is maintaining the weight is actually the hard part. So you still need ongoing support after you've lost the weight. That's a huge difference. 14 visits versus 2 or 3. That's not a small adjustment. That's an entirely different model of care, you see. And truth be told, it makes perfect sense. Think about every successful coach you've ever had, a teacher, the piano instructor, like in the previous example, a sports coach, a personal trainer. You didn't improve because they gave you information one time. You improved because they watched you practice. They corrected mistakes. They celebrated your progress. They adjusted the plan. They helped you through setbacks and encouraged you to keep going. Nutrition is no different. One of the things I tell my clients all the time is this: weight loss doesn't happen because you had one really good week, right? Like, think about that. Weight loss happens because when week 3 gets messy, someone helps you figure it out so that you can continue going. Maybe you traveled for work. Maybe your kids had, activities every night like they typically do. Maybe you got sick. Maybe you went on vacation. Maybe stress hit you like a freight train. Who knows? That's life. Those aren't failures. It's just the reality of life. But if no one is there to help you make adjustments, that's when we can fall into those extremes, because many people would just assume, well, I failed, and then what happens? I'll start over again on Monday. Sound familiar? One of the biggest advantages of more frequent coaching isn't that you're constantly getting new information. It's that you're constantly getting a new perspective, and we're reinforcing the same information over and over again. Sometimes a client comes to me thinking they had a terrible week, and after we talk for 15 minutes and I point out what I think went really well, they realize they actually handled the week very well. They meal prepped twice instead of 4 times. They walked 3 days instead of 5. They had dessert at a birthday party and then went right back to their normal routine. That's not failure, guys. That's flexibility. That's real life. Sometimes people simply need someone to remind them that progress is not perfection. Another example is how often I hear, "Oh, yeah," meaning we discussed some possible adjustments and I gave recommendations, but because the week got crazy busy or whatever way life happened, they completely forgot about the suggestions they were going to try that week, right? So I'm able to go over it again and remind them, and then they're more likely to remember to implement it like in the upcoming week. I don't know about you guys, but I do that all the time. People tell me stuff. I have a great conversation with someone who sparks an idea of something I want to do or try. And then the minute I move on to something else, that memory goes choop right out the door, even if I wrote it down. So then when I see them again and they're like, "Hey, did you ever try XYZ?" I'm like, "Oh my God, now that you mention it, I totally forgot." And I may even need to hear it several more times before it truly clicks and I actually act on it. The same is true within that weight management umbrella. And here's another piece that I definitely don't think gets talked about enough. Behavior change is absolutely not linear. There will be weeks when you're on fire. Everything is clicking. You're doing everything, and it seems like, how come I can't do this all the time? It seems almost, dare we say the word easy? And then there's other weeks where absolutely nothing goes according to plan and you feel like you can't do anything right. That's why accountability matters. Not because someone is judging you. I'm certainly not here to smack the back of your hand with a ruler and tell you you've been a bad client. Accountability matters because someone is helping you to problem solve. I'm here to say, well, what do you think got in your way this week? And how can we mitigate that block for the upcoming week? Not, well, you failed. That's a completely different conversation. And it's a much more productive one as well. Research has consistently shown that medical nutrition therapy provided by a registered dietitian improves body weight, blood pressure, cortisol levels, blood sugar control, and overall health outcomes across a variety of chronic diseases. But here's something people sometimes miss. Those improvements are not just coming from information gathering, nor are they coming from a specific number on the scale. They are coming from a relationship where someone gets to know you, your habits, your barriers, your schedule, your triggers, your family, your goals, and helps you build a plan that actually fits into your life. And as someone who is not only a dietitian, but also has been personally maintaining a massive weight loss for nearly 2 decades, that's one of the reasons I intentionally designed my coaching programs the way that I did. Not because I think everyone needs constant hand holding forever, but because I know that meaningful change takes repetition, it takes accountability, encouragement, and it takes having someone in your corner while those habits are becoming your new normal, your foundation. We're anchoring your life in those fundamental principles of long-term weight loss and weight maintenance. Because eventually, the goal isn't for you to need me forever. The goal is for you to become the expert on your own life, to have the confidence to walk into a vacation, a holiday, a stressful season, and know exactly how to navigate it without feeling like you've fallen off the wagon. That's what sustainable weight loss looks like. So we've established something really important. Behavior change takes time. The research tells us more frequent interactions lead to better outcomes, and sustainable weight loss isn't built in only one appointment. But that raises another question. So often, when I discuss nutrition counseling with potential clients, they say, I just can't afford nutrition coaching. And I completely understand that. Nutrition coaching is absolutely an investment. Healthcare is expensive. Life is expensive, especially these days. I would never pretend otherwise. But here's what I've noticed after years of working in weight management. Most people are already investing money trying to lose weight. They're just investing it in places that promise magic instead of mastery. Think about it. How many people, myself included, have spent money on detox teas, fat burners, metabolism boosters, greens powders, collagen, miracle supplements, random injectable peptides that are not FDA approved, hormone balancing gummies, skinny coffees, 30-day challenges, expensive apps, influencers' meal plans, boot camps, expensive gym memberships they never use. Or maybe it's the latest social media trend. One week it's apple cider vinegar. The next week we're talking about cortisol. Then it's seed oils. Then it's the carnivore diet. Then everyone needs continuous glucose monitors. What is that about, by the way? Then nobody should eat fruit. Friends, the nutrition world changes its bad guy, its villain, like every 6 months or even quicker. And here's what really breaks my heart. People are spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars chasing the next quick fix. Not because they're foolish, but because they're hopeful. They're tired. They're frustrated. They're desperate for something that finally works. And when someone comes along promising, lose 30 pounds in 30 days, or this supplement melts body fat, or doctors don't want you to know this secret, it sounds really appealing, especially if you're like me and came out of the womb on a diet and have struggled your entire life. I always tell people this: hope is a beautiful thing, but hope without evidence can become very expensive. Hope without evidence can become very expensive. And we think we're saving money by not investing in that, dietitian's coaching program, but ultimately we're wasting money by continuing to spend it on things that are not going to give you the long-term outcome you want. One of the biggest problems with social media is that confidence often gets mistaken for competence. I'm going to say that again, and I want you to really listen and hear what I'm saying. Confidence often gets mistaken for competence. Someone can speak with tremendous confidence, have beautiful before and after pictures, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, an incredible physique, and still have absolutely no formal training in nutrition. They're just a great salesperson. Now, let me be clear. There are wonderful fitness professionals out there. There are amazing health coaches, talented trainers, and many of them stay completely within their scope of practice. I refer clients to them all the time. This isn't about titles or letters. It's about qualifications and safety and efficacy. Just because someone lost weight does not automatically qualify them to help someone else lose weight safely. or, for the long term. Think about it this way. If someone renovated their own kitchen, would you automatically hire them to build your house? Probably not. If someone successfully invested in the stock market once, would you immediately trust them to manage your entire retirement? Probably not. Experience matters, but education matters too. As a registered dietitian, our recommendations are built on years of university education, accredited supervised practice, a national board exam, continuing education requirements, evidence-based practice, and an ethical code that requires us to stay within our scope. We are not allowed to simply recommend whatever is trending this week because it gets clicks. We have a responsibility to look at the research, to weigh the evidence, to consider risks, to individualize recommendations. What I do to keep my weight down is not going to be what I recommend for every person. Some of the things that I do may not be appropriate for someone else. So I could have said, forget getting an education. I'm just going to go online and tell people what I did to lose weight and promise that if you do the same thing, then it's going to be great for you too. But that's not ethical. That's not right. It doesn't even make sense because it may not work for every person. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about being a dietitian, because nutrition is almost never black and white. And, as a true crime junkie, I feel like I'm kind of an amateur detective when I'm working with people, because it's about getting to learn that person, what is keeping them from making progress and kind of, figuring out this puzzle for them. So you guys have heard me say this before. My favorite answer is always, it depends. And I know that that's not the sexy answer. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't fit into a 15-second Instagram reel, but it's usually the truthful answer. If someone just randomly comes up to me and asks me a nutrition question, 99.999% of the time, the answer is going to be, well, it depends. Should everyone follow a low-carb diet? Depends. Should everyone eat a high-protein diet? Depends. Should everyone take creatine? Maybe. It depends. Should everyone use GLP-1s? It depends. Should we all be avoiding gluten? It depends, because people are different. Their medical histories are different. Their medications are different. Their goals are different. Their preferences are different. Their lives are different. That's why individualized care matters so much. It's everything. One of my favorite moments with clients is when they realize, I don't have to eat exactly like that influencer on Instagram. No, you don't. You don't have to meal prep identical containers every Sunday if you hate eating leftovers. You don't have to eat chicken and broccoli for every meal. You don't have to be scared of fruit. Did a whole podcast on that a few episodes ago. Go check it out. You don't have to cut out carbs forever. You don't have to buy every supplement someone recommends. Your nutrition plan should fit your life, your budget, your ability, not someone else's highlight reel. And honestly, this is why I think coaching works so well, because no two clients sitting across from me receive the exact same recommendations. One client travels every week for work. Another is raising 3 young kids. Another works the night shift. Another is 5 years post-bariatric surgery. Another one's on a GLP-1 medication. Another one's training for a marathon. Another one hates cooking. Another one loves cooking. How could one meal plan possibly fit all of those people? I'll wait. It can't. One of the things I love most about my coaching programs is that we get to adjust in real time. Maybe what worked in January is no longer working in July. And that's okay. Maybe your schedule changed. Maybe your medications changed. Maybe perimenopause is ramping up, or full-on menopause has finally set in. Maybe your kids went back to school. I don't know. But life changes, and your nutrition plan should be able to change with it. That's not failure, that's flexibility. And here's what I want you to remember. Quick fixes sell because they're simple. Real behavior change is much more nuanced, complex. I don't want to say complicated, but complex. It requires conversations, problem solving, trial and error, encouragement, accountability, and someone who can help you separate the evidence from emotion. Because if there really were one magical supplement, one magical diet, one magical powder or influencer, we wouldn't still be having this conversation, right? So, as we wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with one final thought because if you've stuck around this long, you're probably one of two people. Maybe you've been trying to lose weight for years. You've downloaded the meal plans, you've counted the calories, you've tracked the macros, you've followed the influencers, you've bought the supplements, you've tried the apps, you've done Whole30, keto, Weight Watchers, intermittent fasting, low carb, low fat, juice cleanses, shake programs. Maybe you've even lost the weight only to gain it back again and then some. As we all know, that's what happens when we lose a lot of weight and gain it back. It's usually more so when we gain it back. Or maybe you're the person who knows exactly what to do. You just can't seem to keep doing it. If either of those sounds like you, I want you to hear me when I say this. I don't think you have a knowledge problem. I think you have a support problem. That's a very different way of looking at things because if the problem is knowledge, then another meal plan should fix it. Another podcast, another book, another Instagram post, another grocery list or recipe, macro calculator. But if you've been listening to me for any length of time, you already know that's usually not the missing piece. The missing piece is often someone who can say, I've got you. Someone who can help you navigate real life because life doesn't happen inside this perfect meal plan bubble. Life happens when your kid gets sick, when work gets crazy, when you're grieving, when you go on vacation, when perimenopause or menopause starts, when your medication changes, when your motivation disappears, when you order pizza because everyone else is exhausted. That's where coaching matters. One of my favorite parts about working with clients isn't watching the scale move. Honestly, it's watching the confidence grow. I love watching someone who used to panic over one cookie be able to enjoy dessert and move on. I love when someone comes to me in their appointment who used to skip vacations because they were afraid of gaining weight, go on vacation, come back and tell me, hey, I had a great time. And I don't even care what the scale said, but I'm back on my normal routine. And not freak out over some small uptick on the scale. I love watching someone who believed they'd always be a failure realize, I'm actually capable of doing this. That's transformation. And no meal plan in the world can give you that. People often ask me, so what exactly happens when someone works with you? And honestly, we don't spend every appointment talking about food. I'll be real transparent with you. We don't. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we're talking about protein or we're planning meals or we're reading food labels. Sometimes we're figuring out how to meal prep without spending a whole Sunday in the kitchen. But sometimes we're talking about your stress and how you're managing it or not managing it. Or we're talking about emotional eating or vacations or navigating holidays or how to handle a family member who keeps bringing desserts into the darn house or why one difficult weekend doesn't erase 3 months of progress because nutrition isn't just food. It's life. One of the reasons that I created Anchored Nutrition the way that I did is because I wanted people to have options. Some people just need one conversation. They're stuck. They need clarity. They need a plan. They need direction. That's exactly why I created my Winning at Weight Loss breakthrough session. It's an opportunity for us to sit down together, take a deep dive into where you're struggling, identify what's holding you back, and create a realistic strategy you can actually begin implementing. For other people, one session isn't enough. And I'm not going to lie to you, for most people, one session isn't enough. Most people who take my breakthrough session end up signing on for more sessions with me because it just simply is not enough. That is reality. That's not me trying to sell you more or get more money from you. That's just the reality of what it is. We already went over all of the data and research that supports that. But you don't need another plan. You need someone to walk alongside you while you're building new habits. And that's why I have other coaching programs within Anchored Nutrition because behavior change doesn't happen overnight. It happens one decision, one habit, 1 week, one conversation at a time, consistently and compounding for the long term. Watching clients go from saying, I'll start over next week, to saying, I had one off meal on Friday night and then Saturday I got up and went back to my normal routine. That never gets old, because that is the freedom that we all want, that we all desire on a regular basis. One of the reasons I name this podcast More Than a Number is obviously because I truly believe your worth has never been defined by the number on that stupid scale. But I also believe that your health deserves more than a number, more than a calorie goal or a macro target or a BMI or a quick fix, more than a supplement, more than a fad diet. Because you are a whole dang person with a family, a career, stress, responsibilities, dreams, goals, a life. Your nutrition plan should fit into that life, not ask you to live somebody else's. And before we finish up, I want to leave you with one question. What have you been investing in? Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, time-wise, energy-wise. Have you been investing in things that promise fast results that are only going to be temporary, or things that build lasting skills? Because one of those things is more of a waste and it creates dependence. The other creates confidence. One sends you on a roller coaster and keeps you coming back for the next miracle. The other teaches you how to trust yourself. So if you've been thinking, I just wish someone would help me figure this out, I would love to be that person. But even if it's not me, please, I beg of you, make sure who you do invest in is qualified to help you create the healthy overall life and long-term weight maintenance you truly desire, and not just waste your time and money for a temporary reward. As a coach, my goal has never been to make you dependent on me. My goal is to equip and empower you. It's to help you to become so confident that one day you don't really need me anymore. You may want to meet for some refreshers or accountability, but essentially, you'll know how to grocery shop, you'll know how to meal prep, how to navigate vacations, how to enjoy birthdays and birthday cake without guilt, how to get back on track after a difficult week, how to build a lifestyle that feels sustainable, not exhausting, because that's success. So if today's episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to stop trying to find the perfect diet or the next unrealistic miracle, and instead find the right support. Because you deserve more than another quick fix. You deserve someone who's willing to meet you where you are, walk beside you, and help you build a healthier life that actually lasts. You can learn more about my coaching programs or book a Winning at Weight Loss breakthrough session through the link in the show notes. I'd absolutely love to work with you. So let's quickly recap what we talked about today, okay? Weight loss is not an information problem. Sustainable behavior change requires accountability, repetition, and support. Research consistently shows that more frequent nutrition counseling leads to better outcomes than infrequent visits. Insurance-based nutrition counseling can be incredibly valuable, but many plans have limitations on who qualifies and how often they cover visits. Please be careful not to confuse confidence with credentials. Look for evidence-based guidance from qualified professionals. Lasting success is not built by chasing magic. It's built through small, consistent habits practiced over time. And finally, never forget, you're investing in far more than a meal plan. You're investing in the future version of yourself, the version that feels stronger, healthier, more confident, more present with your family, more energetic, more free around food. And that is worth investing in. My friends, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. And if this episode encouraged you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with someone who has been trying to figure out weight loss on their own. And if you're enjoying the podcast, leaving a quick review helps more people discover More Than a Number and join this incredible community. I love you. God loves you. And I'll see you right back here next week.